Question from the sister said, you said the woman is not supposed to work, but Khadija radiallahu anha was a businesswoman. Can you explain what you meant? Shukran. Afwan. First and foremost is we got to understand a few ground principles. And the first ground principle is that Khadija radiallahu anha, she lived in a time before the Prophet ﷺ was actually a prophet. And she also lived in a time in which he was a prophet. But there's no difference of opinion. There's total consensus that Khadija did not live and reach and realize the final stages of legislation. She died in the early years of the Hijrah. She didn't live in Medina and when the legislation came down. And many people, they make a huge mistake with regards to the life of Khadija. A perfect example of this is getting a second wife. Many women and brothers, they say you shouldn't get a second wife until your first wife is dead or too old or sick or she loses her legs in a car accident, then you should get a second wife. But as long as you, I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. They say things like this. Marriage contracts say, people say something. If I do this, if I die, then you can get a second wife. If you're dead, you know what I'm saying? I'm with. At the end of the day, many people, they say that the Prophet, he married Khadija and he married her for 25 years and then he married another woman. And they say this is a proof that you should keep your first wife for a very, very long time before you marry a second one. Play. It sounds good. If you're talking to non-Muslims, you want to appease them, give them a pat on the back, there is polygyny, but, first wife, etc. It sounds good. When we actually sit down and use your brain a little bit, let alone knowledge of Islam, you see that this is weaker than a cobweb or a spider's web. This is extremely feeble. First and foremost is, the Prophet ﷺ was married to her before he was a prophet. There was no Surah An-Nur, or Surah An-Nisa, or Surah Al-Ahzab, or Surah Al-Baqarah. There was none of these verses that talk about marriage, divorce, child custody, stepchildren. None of that was even in the picture when Khadija lived and died. Radiallahu anha. Everyone understand this? Secondly, common sense. What's easier now? For a man to marry you, and let's go extreme now. Everyone want me to stay on the let's go extreme. Let's say a brother marries 2 women in one day. Let's go all the way, pedal to the floor. He marries 2 women in one day. She's gonna, it says Majnun. The sister's gonna be mad, she's gonna be upset, this and that. But from the get-go, she knows what it is. My time is shared. Your love, your energy, your money, everything is shared. Whether I like it or not, that's how it is. Bottom line, I agree to this marriage, that's how it is. Or another brother who marries a woman and he stays with her for a year, and then he gets a second wife, or 2 years, 3 years, a second wife, 6 months, whatever. Then we have one brother who marries a sister, and let's say he's 16 years old. Or it's his high school sweetheart. Before he was even a Muslim, he was a Kafir, and he knew sister such and such. They went to school together, they went to the prom together. They both took their Shahada, they accepted Islam. Now the brother's 40, 50 years old. How many years have they been together? 40 years, 30-something years. Every single night, me and him. I roll over, I have a bad dream, my husband is there. I cook for him. This is how he likes his eggs and his toast. This is how he likes this. This is the type of shoes he likes. I know everything about him. And there's never been no one for 45 years straight. And then all of a sudden he comes home, he's older and he says, I want to get married. Or I got married. How's the sister going to feel? How's she going to look at it? It's going to be a tremendous blow. That's a long time to be with someone, to get used to someone, to get accustomed to someone. So it's 10 times more what? Difficult now. Instead of it coming in the what? The early stages. So people who say stay married to a woman for 30 years, then get married to a second woman, they're living in a fantasy world. They're not telling the truth. And after 30 years of marriage, the first thing the woman is going to say, why do you need a woman now? You've been with me all this time. You're old. You don't have any strength no more. Oh, you want to marry a young girl now because she's younger and so on and so forth. How am I going to live and survive? And I've been with you for 40 years. I never had a job. It's impossible that she can't have a job, but it means 2 things. Number 1, it can't be a job which is haram. Just like men are not allowed to have jobs which are what? Haram. So if she has to take off her hijab or shake men's hands and do this and do that, it's haram. Number 2, a woman cannot work if she's married and her husband forces her to work. He forces her to work. I'm not paying on your bills. I can't pay this. I'm sorry. I can't do this for you. You have to go outside and get a job. And she doesn't want to go outside and get a job. He can't do that. And that's because it is her haqq upon him to provide everything that she needs and also occasionally what she wants. That's when it's the concept of she is not supposed to work. Everyone understand this? What if a sister is married and her husband allows her to have a job and she's a school teacher? She's not mixing with men. She's not uncovered. There's nothing wrong with that. Or in many cases, she's a single parent mother. She has to work. Or the father or the husband is a deadbeat. He doesn't have a job. He's sleeping on the sofa and she gets up early in the morning. Someone has to pay the bills. Someone has to take care of the kids. I have to go and I have to drive the train. I drive the L. And she has to take off her hijab and wear pants and a kimar. Someone has to pay the bills. Someone has to pay the bills, unfortunately. And it's one of the most destructive things of the inner urban community or the black community or whatever you are, Puerto Rican, white, whatever you are, the urban, is when the family structure is torn apart. Men don't know how to be men and women don't know how to be women. And it's a perpetual wheel that keeps turning. I didn't have my father, so now I raise you a certain way. A woman doesn't know how to humble herself and be a woman. The man can't step up. He tries to help. She doesn't allow him to step up. And the wheel keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. And the children suffer. The children, they suffer, all right? So at the end of the day, a woman is allowed to work in Islam. And at the same time, she's not allowed to work in Islam, depending on the what? On the work. And depending on the situation. If it's a haram job, no. If her husband is forcing her because he doesn't want to pay and he has the money, then we say what? She doesn't have to. I understand it's haram for you to force her to work. And when she doesn't want to work, she wants to stay in the house. I understand this? But there's nothing wrong with a woman being a businesswoman. It's not haram. It's not disliked. A woman can have her own money in Islam. A woman can spend her own money in Islam. She doesn't need her husband's permission to do certain things. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not against that. There's nothing wrong with that. Wallahu a'lam.